Welcome to the NYC Workforce Drop. I'm Greg Morris, the CEO of the New York City Employment and Training Coalition. Wherever you are right now, it's hard for me to begin this drop without just saying yesterday, it is, what's today's date? We're checking on today's date.
The 11th.
It is the 11th. It is June 11th. It's the 11th. On June 10th, it was the Knicks game. The Knicks played the Spurs in Game 4, and I've been a New Yorker for 30 years. I'll acknowledge, as a kid, I was a Laker fan, but living in New York City, obviously immersed in Knicks in every way. This particular gathering of Knicks players, this particular team, which let's just call it as it is, so many people, so many broadcasters were not speaking kindly of this team for quite a while. And suddenly, magically, tremendously, this team elevates through the playoffs. And we watched them last night rally from being 29 points down, the largest deficit in finals history. And then you literally watch, with 1.2 seconds left, the most amazing putback, OG Anunoby, and it's hard to explain this. It doesn't matter where you were in New York City. And I don't think it mattered if you were a basketball fan, necessarily. I feel like the entire city felt something that was out of the norm.
Hope.
Is the word hope? Is it possibility? Is it we've never seen nothing like that before? And where does that come from? I just want to lead with that because I feel like it's been a long day and we're only halfway through it. And it's because last night kept us all up. And the job, as noted by the broadcasters too, the job is not done. There's more, and I'm not going to take full credit, but I have during the course of these podcasts said, the Knicks by this point, when this pod drops, I'm going to assume we will have had, we will be in a position to be perhaps enjoying a parade together, but at the very least, we will have something that we shared as a city. At just a moment in time. And the reason why I'm spending a little extra time on this, besides it was just a remarkable thing. And if we're a couple weeks removed now, it may be fun to kind of take a quick look back. But I just want to say two things. And it's related to this team and how this team works. And I think it connects to the drop. And that is on this journey, what has been fascinating to me during the finals, when the Knicks went up 2 games, and I posted about this. Mikal Bridges was, after the game, is being interviewed. And he just said, they're up 2-0, and they're like, you're going back to the Garden, and you're on track, and you're going to, what's going to happen? And he literally just said, Mikal Bridges from the Knicks, literally just said, as far as I'm concerned, it's still 0-0. We got to stay desperate. And to me, that was something about a hustle and a grind and a focus and a passion and a steadiness that did not seem to get too up or too down, knew there were going to be highs and lows, but just, I'm going to stay on track. And then last night, with the Knicks down by 29, at the end of the game, Jalen Brunson is literally like being interviewed, and they say to him, how did that happen? Barkley and Shaq, like, how did that go? And he just said, we just follow the process. It's just about the process. It's just about we play one play at a time, and we go through that, and then we go to do the next one. And we chip away. And we chip away. And we knew if we chipped away, we would get to where we wanted to be. And there's something about that when I think about workforce development. There's something about that with the magic of this team. Not for nothing, too. The moment, I don't know if anybody saw it last night when OG Anunoby's being interviewed and Kat comes over and hugs him and is like, I love you so much. I love you. Oh, there's the passion. Wait, so here, let me tie the pieces. Stay desperate. No matter the highs and lows, stay focused on your grind. Follow the process. Keep chipping away. Keep pushing in the direction you want to head. And at the very same time, have some love. Give some flowers. Celebrate in the moment. To me, that's what this Knicks journey has been. And I'm fascinated to be on it. And I hope when you're listening to this pod, we all saw each other and toasted to each other because we found ourselves on the next level. On that note, when we talk about a next level, I have to talk about the Jeffrey LeFrancois. Jeffrey, I know from Manhattan Community Board 4. He is the executive director of the Meatpacking District Management Association. You will hear immediately how hoarse his voice is in this moment, and it's because he, like me, were up all night watching the game. On that note, I just want to say to you, I have nothing but love and respect for the work that you do and who you are, and thank you for taking the time to listen to us at the Manhattan Neighborhood Network studio. Jeffrey's going to dig in on what it means to be the executive director of the Meatpacking District Management Association. He's going to talk about what it means to lead with good and serve the public. He's going to talk about what it means to embrace his city. And I got to say, I hope we're all embracing it today. Welcome to the NYC Workforce Drop. Wow. Jeffrey is here. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Greg. It's great to be here.
Now, you heard his voice and you might have been thinking to yourself, is that... Jeffrey, just talk a little bit more. Just let's. What celebrity
there was a
is
lot
this voice?
going on. This celebrity has been on stage. They've been on screen. It is me.
As soon as we said hello to each other, you're admitting your voice is a little ragged,
A little raspy. There was a big game last night.
There's a big. Maybe you heard about it. There's a big game last night, and I immediately thought Kathleen Turner.
Correct. And I announced to my office this morning that I sound like Kathleen Turner.
And what was their response?
They did not know who she was.
Unbelievable.
I shut the door.
Unbelievable. I walked out and said, that's it. Let me just pause for a second. Hold on. Kathleen Turner? Of course, right? Kathleen Turner? Okay, so everybody in the room, in this
Here.
space, at least is, well, maybe you were Googling it. I don't know what you were doing.
I'm gonna give.
I was starting our timer.
There it is. Okay, no.
I'm giving viewing assignments this weekend. That's what it's gonna
And
be.
there's a lot of great content.
Sure is.
There's a lot of really great stuff. I met her, by the way. Have you ever
Did
met
you?
her?
I have not.
I met her when I was the executive director of the Stanley Isaacs Neighborhood Center. We had a relationship with City Meals on Wheels. And for the holidays, she would come and pack boxes that we would deliver to older adults.
That's fantastic.
And that voice, you know it coming a mile away. I loved it. It was so great. She also would tell me to do things. You know, I was the executive, and she was sort of like, you should pack the box. And I was like, okay, well, Kathleen, I'll do that.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, it was great. She was lovely. If she's listening, Kathleen, that was a real
Kathleen,
love. We love you.
fans.
We're huge fans. Forget Jeffrey's office. Okay, I'm thrilled that you're here. Now true story. We know each other from community board to start with.
Correct.
You served as community board chair for how long? Community board 4.
Community Board 4. I was on the board for a decade, and I served 2 years as chair, which is the sort of our standard.
On for a decade. Mm-hmm. Oh boy, I can see her by your face. You can see every line and wrinkle.
Correct. Thankfully, the gray is in my beard and not fully on my head yet, in my hair.
You'll get there.
Yeah.
It happens.
I
It
can
happens
see that,
overnight.
Greg.
It happens overnight. It's tragic. I'm gonna describe. If you don't know Jeffrey, I'm gonna describe. This is what a website called WomenAroundTown.com wrote about you. This is true. Okay, WomenAroundTown.com. I bet they do a great job. I don't know. This is just what I read, and this is specific to Diner en Blanc.
Yes. Dinner en Blanc.
Dinner en Blanc. Okay, and I want to hear about that. It looks beautiful. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
The picture is great. But this is how you were described, and I want you to reflect on this. Jeffrey's distinctive coiffure is second only to his effervescent energy. Some of his favorite things in life include cooking and entertaining guests, traveling, pointing out neat urban planning attributes to his partner, perusing galleries and museums, long-distance domestic train travel, throwing pottery. That one threw me. Throwing pottery, sipping cortados, and enjoying very cold vodka Gibsons. Is that still true?
All of this is true. All of this is true.
And that is the end of the pod, right? What more can we possibly? I'm sorry. Can we back up for a second? Throwing.
So you can sculpt pottery, or you can throw it on the wheel, right? So when it's on the wheel, you're throwing the pot.
Okay, I had a whole different. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, listen. I know you from the community board.
Was I literally throwing pots?
Never.
Got it.
Never.
No.
You threw looks.
No.
You threw looks.
Looks. Yes.
Oh, by the way, community board. Last week we said farewell to the district manager, Jesse Bodine.
Indeed, we did.
And you gave a very lovely speech because he was your district manager when you were serving as chair.
Yep.
And it was really lovely. And it was so warm and generous. You always do that, whether you are pointing out a flaw or celebrating someone. It's always spot on. And then after that was over, this is the part threw me. Jeffrey then returns to the microphone along with several other community board members,
including the new council member,
and the new council member, Councilmember Wilson, and begins singing a song in tribute to Jesse Bodine.
So there's history.
Please tell us the history.
CB4, is the west side of Manhattan, so along the backyard of the theater district, and where actors and musicians have come to be. And CB4 has long had a musical comedy committee.
Musical comedy. How many committee boards have a musical comedy committee?
Surely none others.
This is the one.
They can't. Correct.
By the way, it's on hiatus right now.
It is.
I think.
It is. And the chief writer for that committee has since also left the board. Unfortunately, Jean-Denis Nolan. Okay. Incredible talent. But I was JD. Yes. JD. I was in 5 or 6 shows myself, and they did a number of them before that also. So he would take Broadway tunes or popular music and then rewrite the lyrics, sort of like Inner Circle style, the way the media does about politics. Yeah. We did it in sort of community board camp, like
so fun,
hyper local. So we performed "There's No Business Like Board Business."
There's no business like board business, and it went on for 25 straight minutes, and it was literally fantastic. Jesse had a great time. Shout out to Jesse Bodine, district manager, Manhattan Community Board 4, and to the committee. Maybe we should restart it. No one's asking me to be on it, but I loved that.
Auditions are really really tough.
Oh, I love it. This is a Workforce Development podcast, and we'll get into it. But I can't help but start with the idea that Jeffrey, I met you through the community board, and I will tell you honest, another true story. When I got onto the Manhattan Community Board 4, I reached out to Jeffrey, and I sent him messages, and he never responded to me.
Is that true, or are you just lying?
Sent multiple... Come on, man. I sent multiple messages to be like, hey, I'm the new guy. I want to try to get my feet planted. I got some history in human service. Maybe I could do something. He goes, nothing, no response. And then we met in person, and I saw what you were dealing with the community board, who I adore and also drive me insane.
Yes.
And thought to myself, you had other things to worry about.
I'm sorry about that.
No, I don't bring it up for that reason. I brought it in because I realized...
Did you join like peak pandemic? Was that around the... Did you start in 1920 or...
Is that right?
Not 1920.
1820.
But in 2019, 2020.
I've been on the community board for 200 years. Shout out to Joe Restucci, by the way.
Who has been on since 1664.
1660. He came from across the ocean directly to the community board. We love Joe. Member of the musical
comedy committee, correct?
Musical comedy committee. Can you just, in terms of public service for a second, I saw a note that your civic-minded engagement started back during the election between George Bush and Al Gore.
Yes, I was in high school. I couldn't yet vote, but I started phone banking for a local congressman and realized how much fun that was. And so then I was knocking doors for Al Gore. And, of course, at the time, I was in high school, and it was much easier to be pro-choice than sort of out gay, right? And so for that it was a big sort of eye-opening moment on the rights of women for me, and then how that education transferred sort of my sort of conviction to human rights generally, and obviously gay rights and LGBT community advocacy. But that, long before I could vote, I was making calls, knocking doors, and that sort of stuck with me. And then moved to New York City for college. It was going to be, get this, musical theater or political science.
What?
That's an
or.
or.
I love the or.
And obviously many people said, just do political science because it's theater anyway. So you're killing two birds with one stone.
Very good, very good. It's performance art. There's a lot of...
Correct.
I just have to, as someone who has been associated with some political campaigns over the years, the idea of the door knocking, the phone calls, that is not something that everyone is maybe built to do.
That is true.
How did you find your way to? I mean, you had to have had someone who was guiding this a little bit, but you also had to be inspired to do it. Have you always been someone who was outgoing in that way or present in that way?
Absolutely, and it was not my parents, who were never politically really involved, have become much more aware now, sort of with me as their youngest son. But I honestly, Greg, can't remember sort of what the trigger point was of getting involved. I think we had some family friends who were involved locally in Democratic politics. I always remember our town selectmen coming and giving out the pot holder or the calendar with their name on it, that kind of thing. That stuck with me. But I like talking to people. I like engaging. And I'm a big believer in government for good. And so you do that by talking to people and engaging. And, when there's a campaign going on, I kind of often dread those activities. Yeah. But as soon as I have that first conversation, as soon as, whether it's a phone call or a door knock or a street corner engagement, that reward, whether they call me an asshole or not, right?
Yeah, because it happens.
That absolutely happens.
Yeah.
It's so rewarding. It's so rewarding.
Because that's where the good comes in. Is that what it is? That idea of transferring the energy, ambition,
absolutely,
channeling
and
the public good.
People are frustrated on so many fronts right now, and figuring out ways to connect with them can be very helpful.
I appreciate the way you do that, the way you think about that. I also would suggest you are someone who, if someone did turn to you and say, as you're pitching a candidate an issue, and someone did call you an asshole, I am going to guess that you've had some lessons to learn about how to respond to that.
I have. It is usually met with a smile or like a thank you on the street corner, right? And those kinds of things. Easier to mumble under your breath after somebody hangs up on you about them than when they're right in front of you. But sometimes the smile enrages them more.
Because then they think they're being made fun of.
Yeah, and but it just I just want to cool it down. And there's been many instances when I've been on a corner with a candidate, for example, and the candidate gets attacked, and I often let that needs to play out for a second because it's also useful to people to get that energy out. And then it's once a staffer, always a staffer. I was able to step in, neutralize, shift. People do move on, but yeah. Smile, nod, say thank you. You can call him an asshole back too. It just
and sometimes that happens.
Yeah, and sometimes it's necessary, frankly.
Yeah.
But mostly they just are shocked when I do just start laughing at them. And I have found that is actually a solution.
That deflates the balloon a little bit right there, maybe.
Yep.
I know that you've worked for a number of different sort of elected officials over the course of different offices. How did you find your way into those spaces? Now, because it's one thing to be with a candidate supporting an issue. It's that now transitioning to now I'm part of your office.
Yep.
How did you find your way into that? Because I will tell you, there are lots of folks that I know in my career, in my life, who say, I don't necessarily want to be the thing, but how do I get into the thing? Totally. Because I care, because they have your orientation, I think, which is this idea of there's a public good, there's a value, there's a part of service that matters to me, but I don't know how to get into the inner circle.
Yep. And look, working on a campaign and working in a government office for an elected official.
Two different things.
Two totally different things. Some people are just campaign nomads, right? They travel the country doing that. I've done it for short stints at a time. I've been all over the country for various candidates, but never has it been my permanent gig? So a friend of mine was working for Assemblyman Dick Gottfried, wanted to transition out of it, said to the chief of staff, my now good friend Wendy Pastor, Wendy, I've got this friend of mine who I want to replace me. And
social network.
Voila!
There's the network. There it is, right there.
And so that was really, it was really remarkable how that happened. And I learned so much so quickly in that office. Everything on both the, constituent services, policy, west side of Manhattan, not just politics, but just sort of the nature of the district. And then, of course, figuring out how to get involved super locally in politics in the city. So Stonewall Democrats, citywide LGBT Democratic Club, all the West Side clubs, and like what that means to be involved with that. So I loved it because I was one of the people who was happy to do the day-to-day government work, constituent services, liaison to the community boards, right? But then also, because I say that I hobby in politics, always also happy to be involved in that sort of on-the-ground way as well. And I think that how to get involved is you should start with campaigns because that's how you can test a candidate. That's how you can test yourself. That's a volunteer opportunity, right? And then you're building those moments on your resume that you can sort of point to when you're going to have that interview.
And I think that it's fair to say if you become a trusted, reliable, present,
absolutely,
it opens doorways.
100%.
Relationships matter.
Yep.
This is the Workforce Drop. And
no,
when we talk
by
about
the way,
workforce,
no matter the field, right?
No matter the field, that's right. Social networking matters. The relationships, the inner circles, they're real.
Yep.
I want to go back to a thought that you had about referencing sort of the performance aspect to some degree of the campaigning and that. I'm curious, the elected officials you've worked for, been around, how do you think about them in terms of who they are to the public versus who they are sort of on the inside?
Well, it's funny because I think we're incredibly lucky, and in particular in most of Manhattan, that our elected officials are authentic publicly. What you find privately is most of them have a trash mouth. And so I would say that's the major distinction is get them going, and suddenly you're talking to a trucker.
Yes, yes. That's where the real talk comes in. That's right.
Exactly. But it is remarkable to me when I talk to friends around the country, in cities also, and in particular like professional colleagues who run bids like business improvement districts like I do, where like they don't have relationships at all with their local elected officials.
There it is.
And so often I'm talking about how they ask me how I get stuff done. You got to get to know people.
Exactly.
And so it's really... And people are shocked that in the city of New York and then Manhattan, like that you can know these people.
That's right.
It just takes time and sort of a willingness to figure out how to meet people where they are. And I think for the most part, our elected officials are relatively accessible.
And you have to go to their things.
You do have to go to their things.
You got to be present.
And they can be dumb and annoying and whatever, but you got to go.
And you go around. You're there.
Yeah.
And then you start to figure out who they're connected to, and you cultivate those relationships.
Yep.
And also, you referenced the clubs.
Yep.
There's a lot of clubs.
Sure are.
In Manhattan, New York City, and beyond the political clubs. Can you tell me what political club life is like?
If the house is not in order, things outside are problematic also. And so a local political club is sort of the most granular level of democratic politics in New York City. And they're broken down by assembly district. And then parts of that assembly district. And so I was a founding member of HK Dems almost 11 years ago.
Hell's Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen, Democrats, which took out the last club that still had connections to Tammany Hall.
Look at that.
Which is remarkable.
It only took how many years to get that done?
Like 100 years for that to really happen.
100 years to dismantle Tammany Hall.
And what is fun about it is it's shown people, it's given them a pathway to involvement. So whether that was writing postcards to Pennsylvania for a federal election, or more recently writing postcards to local voters about the council race, you get around the kitchen table in your apartment, you sit at the coffee shop. It's great ways to build community. And then there's the technical stuff. You got to petition to get candidates on the ballot. You hold forums, right? How can the club be involved with, quality of life improvements in the community? And so, again, it's just another avenue for community involvement in a city that has so much going on. It's just a great way to be involved. And, of course, I think more people need to be made aware of these clubs.
Yes.
And, like, the work that it takes to get on a ballot and the work it takes to do these kinds of things, because we'd be better for it.
Well, isn't the sense sometimes that, look, every New Yorker has opinions.
No.
I know it's hard to believe. And every New Yorker thinks they know how to get everything done, or whoever represents them doesn't do a damn thing.
Correct.
And that and again, and I often think to myself, again, as someone who's been part of the community board world, it is fascinating, both the expertise that your neighbors carry in thinking about issues that affect quality of life, that affect zoning issues, that affect the business community, just everything imaginable, right? Like, I just want to say that. And while the community board is an advisory body, I don't know how many people actually know sometimes what they do and how it is that they can have influence and value in a neighborhood, in a community.
Yep.
And again, if you don't get that, then maybe you don't get the idea of what do these clubs do.
Correct.
And then I get to the place where I don't know what my electeds do, and it's sort of like you're removing yourself farther and farther from being someone who is a New Yorker who has opinions, who wants to maybe get something done.
Absolutely.
To just being someone who says nothing can ever change.
Correct. And I think that speaks to a lot of people's frustration right now.
Sure, and reasonably so. People are frustrated for lots of reasons.
110%.
So.
Absolutely. But again, it all ladders up.
Yes.
And so that's why I think it's important to have these strong mechanisms, strong things in place to make sure we are doing all that good that is possible.
I want to ask one more question, and then about the politics game. Although one of my favorite calls of the year was you and I, Mamdani transition period.
Transition committee.
And we were you and I were just chatting it up.
Yep.
What do you think about? We had that moment. Would you? Yeah. How do you feel about power players?
Angling. That's it.
It's such angling. It's such angling. Yeah. And by the way, I was learning from you. I learned from you in these moments because while I have some juice in some pockets, you're a
But I think
player.
To your point, I've learned so much from you also, Greg. Of like everybody comes to the table with their own particular expertise, and that's so important.
Okay, one more political thing, and then we'll get into the meatpacking district in particular. But here it is. This is you. This is this is from your Cranes. You had an article in Cranes.
Thank you, I did.
Looking great. And look at that. Look at that guy in that Cranes article. Boy, he looks fantastic right there.
Me in a flashy blazer, unheard of.
I know. So my printer did not do a good enough job of showing off how flashy it was. But this is what you said. PACE graduate. Awesome. Your political science. All right. Knocking on doors. Yep. Your quote, I understand the value of winning because I lost for so long in the politics game.
Yes.
What's the lessons from
My
losing?
first 8 years in politics was I lost every race. There was one in 2006 that we took the House back in 2006, and Nancy Pelosi became the Speaker. But back to 2000, right? Al Gore lost. That was brutal. I didn't sleep for weeks while the Supreme Court was figuring this out. The congressman that I was being called for then also lost after 12 years in office. So you learn to just keep fighting. And that you can't take anything for granted. And whether you're 40 points ahead, you are always the underdog and treated as such. And that is something I take with me to everything that I do in professional work, in politics, just thinking about everything. I think it's really important because you can't take stuff for granted.
That's right.
And that's my biggest takeaway from losing so much for so long.
Right.
And then it teaches you the value of a win.
That's true.
And how difficult that is, but that it's also precious and can be fleeting. And so the commitment has to be there.
Losing is crushing, yes?
Oh God, yes.
I've been part of campaigns. I've seen people go through the process.
Incredibly painful.
No matter what it is, no matter long shot, no long shot, the agony that folks experience, whether they are the elected or the inner circle or the team.
Yep.
There's a lot of pain. And I think part of that comes from, and I don't know how many people get it, unless you've experienced or you've been around it.
Yep.
And unless you lived it, you don't know, certainly. But I don't think people realize to put yourself forward as someone who sees themselves as a decision maker with a point of view is unveiling and personal.
Vulnerable.
In ways that are not easy. There's nothing about that's really hard. And then when something doesn't go the way you hope, the crush of the spirit.
Absolutely.
You've seen that.
I have seen that. And this is making me think about the different campaigns I've been a part of, most of which have been for candidates. But in 2009, I was a part of my first issue-based campaign in the state of Maine. It was a marriage equality ballot. It was called No on One, was the pro-marriage equality position. And we lost by 5 points. I spent 2 weeks in Maine. Assemblyman Gottfried said, go do the work, Jeffrey, make this happen. We didn't. I won my precincts, but we lost five points in the states. Fast forward 2 years later, we won by 5 points.
Look at that.
But it was my first issue campaign, and that was interesting because the people in the campaign office were not the typical campaign staffer. Including I was working with a bunch of Republicans, and that was a real first. And so it couldn't just be the what brought us together was very different, and that was hugely educational. And then most recently, last year, with the charter revision. Commissioned those housing measures.
Yes.
I was on the street so much for that on the West Side, and it was one of the most engaging campaigns I've been a part of. And I just think that was because it was issue-based. And so people were able to ask about the issue and the question, not a person. And it's a very different conversation.
You know what? Let's before now. I got to do one more thing here because I want to talk about the housing piece.
Sure.
Because I want to build off that. That relates to the community board.
I can talk housing all
I
day
know you
long.
can talk.
You
Listen,
both.
this is a whole separate podcast. But I do want to mention this because one of the reasons why I called you to start with when I became a community board member for MCB4, part of the reason is because I had read about you in the New York Times. The NYC community boards usually oppose new housing, not this one. This was the period of time where you were putting forward, the board was putting forward, its plan for how it saw what housing growth and opportunity could look like. And there was an emphasis on affordability in that. And I thought to myself, I don't know. I was coming from a community board on the other part of town, and I also was familiar with community boards. I didn't know where else I could say someone was stepping up like that. That was, I would suggest, that was particularly bold. Is there anything you want to say about that particular plan, strategy, desire, interest?
I mean, it sure was. It took, that housing plan has been around for years, and it took, before I even became chair, I had to start pushing the committee to update it, to do the work, because it needed to, it's your sales deck. It is what gives you the ability to have discussions. And I think so often with community boards, they send a letter and it's over. Whereas, like, I think follow-up is even more important than that letter to begin with. But the letter is the permission slip. So that report and guide work, that framework to 30,000 units of new housing, most of which is affordable, was the way we got to sit with commissioners, was the way we were sitting with deputy mayors. Because, look, use this as a framework. I knew that it wouldn't be adopted. It wasn't going to get rubber stamped. And frankly, one of the biggest challenges I had with some of the individuals that built this was that it is biblical to some folks, right? And it can't be in this kind of work. It has to be iterative. You have to expect that things will change, compromise.
If you start with one position, you're not going to move from that position.
Correct.
It's going to be very difficult to move anything.
Yep. And at the time, somebody I respect greatly, and we get drinks occasionally. Vicky Bean, she was a deputy mayor for economic development at the time, and she totally trashed me in the article. But I was like, she's also doing her job, right? She could never adopt 51 separate plans for community districts.
Exactly.
And I understand that. But what we did was sort of really groundbreaking and like coming up with a plan, being proactive about housing as opposed to being knee-jerk, reactive.
That's right.
Often, pessimistic on the topic.
That's right. And Vicky Bean, who's the faculty director at this point in time, she's the faculty director at NYU's Furman Center. She said, former deputy mayor, they are being constructive, they're stepping up to the plate, but she said allowing community boards to set their own priorities would clash with citywide needs, which leads us to the conversation about the city of yes.
Absolutely. And like the importance of that, right? And how the city has to make decisions for the city because each neighborhood, think about how long everybody in the back of Brooklyn and Queens has been saying no to housing.
That's right.
That has put tremendous strain on the places that already have the density.
That's right.
And the same goes for Long Island. If Long Island built more housing, that would relieve strain on the city. And so it just ladders up, again, so much.
And everybody wants to be incentivized to do it. And then it's how tall can it possibly be?
Correct.
And who's going to be allowed to live there?
Yep.
And what entity is the non-for-profit or community-based entity that serves the community that's attached to it? And how does that look and how does that work?
And by the way, back in the weeds a second, something else I did as chair is we were the first and only community board to develop a policy around what was called the FAR, cap, which was 12, floor area ratio of residential buildings. Totally arbitrary, made-up cap.
That's real. Yeah,
it was people were having a meltdown about it, and we came up with a policy of like how we would support a change, and then a year later, the state got rid of the cap.
Isn't that fascinating?
And like it's remarkable. And talked to many city planning commissioners prior to that time, and they're just like that was always the struggle. You couldn't add affordable housing, right? Like how were capped at something.
That's right.
So how could we get more out of these places?
That's right. Because the complexity of this is, if I'm a developer, I have a bottom line. that I am dealing with.
Yes.
I have to be able to get to a place.
Money is not a bad thing.
Money is not a bad thing. And also, we can say that and at the same time recognize that the existing AMI, are outrageous.
Correct.
They make no sense.
Affordable
whatsoever.
for who, right? We hear that a lot.
Affordable for who?
Again, stuff that's out of our control, unfortunately. And like, folks don't recognize the complexity of it. But they're not wrong.
That's right.
In those instances. But there's been sweeping, extraordinary changes on housing in the past 5 years alone. Mm-hmm. I would say even just the past 3 years that are going to bear fruit in such amazing ways. We're already starting to see it. We're not going to solve this crisis overnight, but we are really making some great changes.
And legitimately, I was just on a panel earlier today with the with Abney. Better New York, I was with them, and NYC ETC were together, and we were doing a panel on economic justice, economic development issues, and Gary LaBarbera from the building trades was there, and talking about we have to build our way out of a very challenging moment in our city's history. We have to think about infrastructure, zoned in on how the trades can make that happen, and how it is a union job is the job that leads to a middle class life at a minimum in New York City. But I mention it because, well, this is the workforce drop, and oftentimes I think we drift into other lanes. The truth of the matter is housing, you can't work unless you got a roof over your head. Way too many folks who have jobs right now are in the shelter system.
Correct.
We're in a massive housing shortage right now, and someone's got to build it. So to me, it's all workforce related. And I think we forget sometimes, we meaning New Yorkers, I think forget that community boards have a point of view on who should build what, where, and how. And that has a direct consequence on who can get hired to do what at what wage.
Correct.
And when.
Yep. But I think that's, again, where the might of the city needs to come in, right? Where what the deputy mayor said of, like, it needs to be a decision of the city, not of each individual neighborhood.
That's right. Because if you have 15 different plans, then we can't navigate a damn thing. Okay.
Yep.
Just a last note. I love that you said this. This is from that article. This is you. This plan, the plan you were talking about, is really meant to be an opportunity, a gift to the city and the state from a community saying, build these apartments here. A gift, the community come to the table and say, we're going to give you a point of view. Actively, not reactive, proactive. And I appreciate you sharing that because that's all about incremental growth. If we achieve 25% of this plan, we've made a difference in the community and the city of New York.
Absolutely.
That's just a tremendous mindset. Now, tell me how you take that mindset to the meatpacking. First off, Andrew Ridgie was on the pod.
Love Andrew.
Andrew's amazing. We were texting today, giving me a hard time. He corrected me on something I said, and I really appreciate it. And I was like, God damn it, because he was so right, and I got so. Andrew's great. And first question he asked you, I'm going to ask you too, because you answered it beautifully on his pod. He literally was like, meatpacking district. Where are we talking about? Will you please explain the parameters of the meatpacking district?
Yes.
And as part of that, give us a little bit of background because, as he said, I'm not sure where the meats are.
Yes, exactly. And I'll make some jokes as I tell this story, too. I'll advance with that. Little neighborhood on the Lower West Side of Manhattan, nestled between the West Village and Chelsea. Historically, for over 2 centuries, a place where first produce and always goods were traded. It was the first municipal market in the city designated on Washington Street back in the late 1800s. Produce moved elsewhere. Meat stayed in the neighborhood. And at its peak, there were 250 slaughterhouses operating in that district for decades. And also an entire underground refrigeration system that chilled the buildings.
Now, tell me more about that, because you said that to him, and I remember listening to that in the pod, and I was like, wait, what? Oh, right.
City built the infrastructure to have these buildings be chilled. And the neighborhood was all the cobblestones were redone for the infrastructure. They preserved all those the manhole covers that accessed that specific system. That chiller has long been turned off, but like an entire network is what kept that neighborhood cold, so the meat could be processed and stored. And so, really, it was just to fast forward high level on the story. Like, it was the advent of refrigerated trucking that fundamentally changed the meat processing industry, right? Animals in cities were no longer slaughtered here. They were slaughtered on the farms and then brought to cities. And so that really changed the game. We sort of saw the hollowing out of the neighborhood. 70s, 80s, 90s, nightlife, artists, still meat processing, but just not at the level that there was. That all sped up. Late 90s era of Sex and the City. Pastis opens, right? A store called Jeffrey, not by me, another Jeffrey, opens on 14th Street. Stories of literally women walking over blood-slick sidewalks, right? Going to spend thousands of dollars on a bag. And that happened. And then wild nightlife stories and just a real fascinating history. And today, it is I just think an amazing neighborhood that is putting out utterly 21st century product and things. We have a huge tech footprint. We have a growing fintech community. Still have fashion headquartered in the district. DVF is there. Theory is there. Brands that were founded in the district are still there. And brands that are choosing to open in meatpacking, while they tend to are leaning sort of more corporate luxury, global corporate luxury, they're choosing meatpacking because it's always been different. And so we really like leaning into that and thinking of the neighborhood as a canvas, both for brands and for people. And I am so lucky in this job because it is so much fun. And I never thought I would be an economic development professional, but I just could not be.
You grew up thinking that would be you?
No. 20 years ago, I didn't know what the hell that meant either, right?
Do you know now?
No. I every day it's something different, isn't it, Greg? Isn't that how it works?
Yes, it's completely. Because it changes by the hour in some cases. Exactly.
Yep. Basic of the neighborhood. But you asked where it is.
Yeah.
Technically, our boundaries for the services we provide are from Horatio to 17th, 8th Avenue to the West Side Highway. So a compact little square, 7 million square feet of commercial office space, and about 300 ground floor businesses, between 24 and 28,000 workers in the district. We had almost 15 million visitors last year. I really want to break that number. I'm hoping we do this year with World Cup and all these extraordinary things that are happening. And I want that number to grow. So that's where it is.
Okay. So an out-of-towner comes and says, I've heard about this meatpacking district. And I said, look, I know the guy who runs it, essentially. And they say to me, where do I need to go? What do I need to do? I got an afternoon. Where would you send them?
Oh, my God.
I love putting people on the spot. Randy Pierce was here. I put him on the spot in the same way. I can't.
I'm not allowed to answer. I'm not allowed to answer.
I got a visitor going to see something. What would you want them to see?
Well, look, I think there are so many great journeys to be had in the neighborhood, and so I always just think about it in scale.
I like it's choose your own adventure now.
Exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep. And I will start by saying, big picture, my jurisdiction is the public realm, and our neighborhood, the retail skews luxury, and so we treat the public realm the same way that the stores treat the fancy bag or the great pair of jeans, and we want your experience outside to be just as top notch as it will be when you're going to buy the bag or the jeans.
Well played, sir.
That said, one of the things that frustrates me now about the neighborhood, pre-pandemic, I had journeys for those cortados.
Yes.
And I sort of take the European approach to afternoon coffee where I want it in a piece of ceramic and I stand at the countertop and I drink it.
Picture that, everyone.
Right?
If you're listening right now, just picture this well-coiffed gentleman.
And post-pandemic, not as many coffee shops have ceramic.
That's right.
And so a couple of them have brought it back, or you can ask, but to me, it's a nice pause, to just take that 10 minutes for yourself. Don't take your phone out. Enjoy the coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was always a journey, right? A different cortado, a couple times a week, different places.
Cortado run,
exactly, absolutely. But oh gosh, well, a couple of favorites on food.
Thank
right
you.
Now. Feast on Us is a fabulous lunch spot. They've done catering forever, but they have this little tiny storefront on Hudson and Gansevoort that is a powerhouse for neighborhood lunch food.
I love that.
Great spot, family owned. I went and slapped them all 5 before coming here because of the Knicks.
Yes,
because we've been going back and forth. They were all in jerseys,
of course.
And so that's a great little lunch spot. Then Chelsea Market's in the neighborhood.
Chelsea Market's in neighborhood. You got to go through Chelsea Market. Everyone's got to make that pilgrimage to
absolutely.
Chelsea Market.
And the local secret is that downstairs is called Chelsea Local.
That's right.
And that's where the cheese shop is. That's where Pearl River Mart, the Asian grocery is.
Yeah,
that's where Dixon's
it's not
is.
one level. You got to wander around, people.
Yep. And I always sometimes I think of myself like Belle in Beauty and the Beast, where she's waving to the baker and has the baguette and all the things.
Of course, that's what.
And
does.
When I see Jill at Saxel Beach Cheese, that's what it is. And Joanne at Pearl River, Jake at Dixon's, it literally becomes a thing.
I love it.
I love it. So Chelsea Market is an absolute gem. And couple of favorites in there. Kimbap Lab, a Korean place downstairs at Chelsea Market, Pearl River food, amazing. Ms. Known, Israeli street food. Their falafel is just amazing.
Let's break and just get something.
I'll be back.
I'll be right back.
Correct.
This pod will return in an hour.
Exactly. And then I would be remiss if I wasn't mentioning pasties.
Of course.
I am so lucky. That is, I'm not afraid to say this publicly. The biggest perk of my job is that I can get tables at pasties.
Ooh, there it is.
I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry. We all have to be proud of something.
I feel like I asked Andrew that question about can you get into things, and he totally dodged it. And you just leaned the hell into that.
I take it seriously. I don't abuse it, of course.
Of course,
but it is.
Of course, he would not abuse it. Oh my goodness! Let me. Oh wait. Well, here's okay. Back to
I can give you a martini run also.
Well, listen. We're going to talk about that after the pod is over, and we're going to get started on that journey. But let me go back to Cranes for 1 second.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Meatpacking District a little bit here. Something interesting. The article started, and again, you got your fantastic blazer on in this picture. The article starts saying, compared with its grittier post-industrial self, the Meatpacking District is now cleaner, calmer, and more upscale. Okay. And then it says, Jeffrey, the former chair, current head of the business improvement, feels its transformation should not be reduced by a certain quote-unquote G word. You say, gentrification is often used as a weapon than a definition of change, and change is the nature of the city.
Yep.
You want to say a word or two about that?
I do. People often ask me, how do you keep the neighborhood, as it is, yada, yada. And it's well, we don't. I learned, and I think we all learned during the pandemic, that stagnation is unhealthy. Mm-hmm. When the city was not functioning, the city was not healthy. Mm-hmm. Both we as humans, the economy, right? Think about the layers of that of that reference. And so neighborhoods have to change. Time goes by. Things need to change. Mm-hmm. And I think as we think about the preservation, obviously we have a big historic district, which has been really important to preserving the identity of the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We've really developed a very strong brand, and that has facilitated a lot of this. I mentioned earlier, we think about the neighborhood as a canvas, sometimes calling it the timelessly chic destination in which trends best unfold. A trend is fleeting.
I'm sorry, just why don't you do that one more time, just for fun? I want to hear that. I want everyone, do me a favor, wherever you are, if you're doing laundry, you're walking the dog, you're outside, perhaps it's summer on a beachfront, the waves are lapping up. Okay, just pause, close your eyes, and say that one more time, and let's transport you to where it is that Jeffrey spends his time. Go ahead.
The Meatpacking District is a timelessly chic destination where trends best unfold. Trends are fleeting. The timelessly chic nature of our neighborhood.
There it is.
Even when
that's what makes it chic is that it's got to
falling apart, gritty past, right? Mm-hmm. There are still those pictures we've all seen when it's look at that.
Yeah.
And that's a layer of contrast that we love. Also, that's a big part of our identity and our brand, like those cobblestones and high heels, that preserved architecture, the warehouses with new buildings on top of them.
Yeah.
Right? It is such a fun factor that we get to sort of live in this and play in it. And again, we're preserved from the sort of historic district standpoint, but Google is at home in Meatpacking, pumping out modern technology in a way that never would we think it would take place there.
Do you feel like it's accessible? Do you feel like more? There's definitely a touristy aspect.
Absolutely. Look, I think it is accessible. You have to, it's about discovering it. The Whitney is doing an extraordinary job. The
Whitney's
amazing. Amazing.
By the way, shout out to Stephanie Birmingham, our director of community operations, worked at the Whitney for a long time.
Okay.
And she brings that ethic, ethos, energy to our membership.
Absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt. I just had to give a shout out to our beloved Stephanie.
And look, 11 years, the Whitney has now been back downtown on Gansevoort Street, fundamentally changed the art scene on the west side. I mean, that museum expected, a couple of 100,000 visitors a year. Over 1 million people are busting through those doors a year.
Amazing.
It's extraordinary. And then so you asked about accessibility. The Whitney has free Friday nights.
Yep.
They have free second Sundays.
Yep.
Entry is always free for anybody 25 and under. That has changed the visitor in the neighborhood for the better. Because if you're 22 and you're fresh out of college and you're working that entry-level job, you're not shopping in Meatpacking.
That's right.
But what I want is for you to have visited the neighborhood, and when you have saved up for that suit or that bag, you're going to choose Meatpacking to do it. And so for me, it's about giving that sense of good and feeling wanting to be somewhere, because it's more likely you'll be a return visitor. And we want people to be more successful, obviously, as they grow older. So having that be the case and choosing Meatpacking as your place to do those transactions and go to dinner, all that kind of stuff, that's how we think about it from an economic development, foot traffic, unlocking dollars perspective.
How much energy do you have to spend in thinking about the district in terms of workforce development? I mean, obviously, economic development is critical. Economic growth is critical. We have a deputy mayor of economic justice right now, so I think we're weaving in and out of that territory in some of this conversation. But how do you think about it? Is that part of your portfolio too, to think about how it is that the workforce is working, succeeding, folks finding opportunities to be employed within the district?
Absolutely, because I think of the neighborhood as an amenity. It's an amenity for the offices and any business that's there, right? Because and a big part of that is because we have some fabulous public spaces. And so don't sit at your desk and eat lunch. Go enjoy it on the plaza. And that is going to make that business benefit more, because you're going to have I believe you're going to have a more productive employee, because they're happy to take that break outside because it's beautiful. And then they're more likely to want to go to work because it's a great place to work. It all ladders up. It all folds into a big picture there. And yes, I see my job directly tied to economic development, because it's about foot traffic, right? And I need to make sure that foot traffic I want it to grow healthily. I don't want to be inundated. As I've long said, and I'll say it here, if a costume character shows up on Gansevoort Plaza, I will lose it. We are not Times Square. We don't want to be. I love Times Square, by the way. We live in we live on the West Side.
Come on, shout out
Big
Times
Broadway
Square.
Fan. Tom Harris, who runs the bit up there, fantastic.
Yes,
but
yeah.
Times Square is Times Square.
But Times Square is Times Square.
Correct. But busy is good. And oftentimes the neighborhood doesn't feel as busy as it is, because we have the public space to absorb it. And so often in the city, people get frustrated because it's cramped. I don't have room on the sidewalk. People are cutting me off. They're not walking fast enough. I agree. Well, you come to Meatpacking and you won't necessarily have that stress and that angst from it.
Well said. I do feel like in some cases that neighborhood and the Meatpacking, it does feel a little. It's like transporting to another time. Is that fair to say? I mean, there are pockets of New York, again, different neighborhoods, different communities in New York City. There are just sometimes where you're wandering through the streets and you're like, I'm forgetting in New York City, but it's not like what the rest of what I'm familiar with feels like or looks
charm.
Right?
It also was not a tear-down neighborhood. These buildings were repurposed in many ways, whereas other neighborhoods, even buildings that were built, would have been built in the 1800s, that then in the 20s or 30s they got torn down for something else, right? Like that didn't happen here. And no, it also to me feels far away from everything, but it's actually not at all.
But it's not really. Yeah,
the L train and the ACE stop at 14th and 8th. We got 4 buses that run through the neighborhood, obviously well connected to the bike network. But like when you're there, you're almost like, where's the rest of the city?
In
a way.
Yeah. Transformative. We're beginning to wind down, although I know we could talk lots and lots more just about martinis. But here's the thing. Couple of points. You referenced the pandemic. The pandemic has come up a lot in this podcast. I think anybody who we're on the other side of what that once was, nothing could have prepared us for it. I think we're still processing in many ways. I think, unfortunately, perhaps we're not spending enough time sort of dealing with it. And many times we've had the podcast, there's the gift and the curse. The curse of it is that we went through the most horrible thing we could imagine. The gift was we learned something about ourselves, our neighborhoods, when Randy Pierce talked about it, the business community, how it stepped up and how it engaged in that particular moment. Folks in the healthcare space, what that meant and what that they became from that going forward. Is there anything you want to say or anything you can think about that as you reflect on having gone through that period as someone who is a community leader, someone who serves the public good, both from an individual, I think, who you are perspective and as your profession, that you kind of look back on and think to yourself, that was the worst, and also we gained something from it?
I am an opportunist, and I'm not shy about saying that as horrendous as the pandemic was, it was an extraordinary opportunity in which we learned a whole lot. We had to learn it quickly. The city was willing to be flexible in ways that it is typically rigid, and so that was a real opportunity. But the floor fell out for everybody. Nobody could have predicted what was happening the next day, right? To insulate for any of that.
That's right.
And so it was you had to be a cheerleader, right, for the city as much as possible, and for our community in every way possible. But the lessons learned were really tremendous, and I'm afraid we're getting further and further from some of them. And by the way, Greg, I actually hate talking about the pandemic because it's in the past, and when have we recovered? What's the new baseline? Well, I'm not doing as well. It's like when is that? But I reference it because we learned so much. It was such a low point, and we've come so far out of it. In Meatpacking, we have our lowest vacancy rate since the pandemic of retail storefronts. That's a fantastic milestone. We're getting back to the foot traffic numbers, which is a wonderful milestone to be meeting. So it is still a metric, even though I sort of hate the past because I always want to be going forward. And again, that's that nature of changing neighborhoods and the changing city is a really good thing. Lessons that it taught us. Throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, and be willing to not necessarily fail, but see that it's not working and then change it. I think one of the things about New York in general is so often it's a great place where good policy comes to die, because by the end it is Swiss cheese. And New York has such good, bold ideas, but when we stand up policies, it's often not the full might of the policy. And so then people are really mad that the policy is not that good because we didn't stand it up fully.
That's right.
Legalization of marijuana is a great example of that. We had the most transformative, progressive cannabis legislation in the country, and it was Swiss cheese by the end, and then it was a disaster for a couple of years.
That's right.
So be bold on how we're standing things up. I think that was a huge lesson of the pandemic. I got scolded so many times by city agencies, and they would say,
I don't believe it.
All the right notices, all the right things, and it's like, well, just give me permission. And if you don't, I'm still gonna do it.
Yeah. Make me not. Right.
That's right. And oftentimes, and then we do something, and we'd see an agency use our example as what to do next. And I'm thrilled. City should take the credit.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't need that when my board knows we did it.
That's right.
But I always say to the city, say yes to me because I want the city to look good and do good.
You win when they win.
Exactly.
And that means we win. That's
Correct.
the best thing.
Correct.
Which is why the Knicks are going to win.
Absolutely.
Oh, look how I tied that in together.
You got it.
Wait a minute. Okay, so to wind us down, speaking of going, what's next for the Meatpacking District? And as part of that, you're going to have to tell me how you feel like the World Cup situation is going to work out for us. And I know, and if you watch New York One, you've seen him talk about this from time to time.
Look, this extraordinary confluence of events, the Knicks, baby, the Knicks. I mean, come on. We couldn't have scripted this. This is happening, which I think it's going to be a bigger deal than the World Cup.
Wow.
For us, just in general. This is our hometown team.
I love it.
And unfortunately, soccer is the world sport. It's not necessarily America's sport. So we're getting there. I'm super excited for what will be the stadium in Willets Point one day.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled about that. Talk about economic development.
That's
jobs, baby, right?
Between that and the casinos, the most enormous projects imaginable happening right now.
And so World Cup, our summer of soccer, our summer goals programs have kicked off. Whole bunch of stuff happening in the district because, again, what I love is for people to come through and see something going on and going on outside. What's going on in Meatpacking? Let's try that again this time. So a whole bunch of stuff happening on that front. Very excited about this summer. And you asked about the World Cup. Our hotels are very busy in Meatpacking, and I am thrilled about that.
That's good to hear.
Because I'm nervous about, right? And it's not just because New York is expensive. It's because who is choosing New York right now if you're visiting from around the world.
That's right.
Why are you choosing it? Why is it $500 or $600 for a shitty hotel outside the Port Authority? Pardon my language, but like that is a reality. That's a separate discussion of why I believe that reality exists today. But I really hope the numbers materialize because I want the city to keep winning big things.
That's right.
I said to Justin Brennan, who's running statewide events for the governor now, or I forget his exact title. But I said, what's next? What are we pitching next?
Exactly. What's coming after this?
She wants Olympics 2042, but like we could do something in the meantime.
Right. That's
exactly
big.
Right.
That's exactly
and
right.
These moments are uniting. Like that's what's so incredible about the Knicks right now. Is like I was high-fiving and hugging people, right? All last night and all day today, it's been that way.
And everyone's felt that.
Absolutely.
Everyone's felt that.
And so I want more big things. I love doing big things for the city, for the neighborhood. We have a whole bunch of ideas in store for what's next for us for our streetscape projects, which, again, people often don't correlate streetscape changes with economic development, but they directly tie together.
Because I get joy from my community. I like to be present in my community. I like to see my community. I like to leave work to go be part of something like that.
Dwell time is a super important factor because you're more likely to spend money and enjoy being a place where you're dwelling.
And by the way, that's the resetting of Manhattan in some ways, right? The idea that Manhattan needed to change itself to be a live, work, and play space in a different way.
Completely. The rezoning of the Garment District, right, is teaching that extraordinarily. Like that's going to become a live, work, play neighborhood.
That's right.
It's overdue, but it's really exciting.
To wrap us up in our final 2 minutes, I'm going to hold up a picture of you, and I want you to describe it. And I want you to tell me what you're thinking about in this picture. Okay, so you're going to tell the audience. This one's from the New York Times. So I'm just going to hold up a picture and show it to you.
So it is a very austere profile of me looking west.
Looking west.
I was in a parking lot on 46th.
That's where you are in that picture. You're looking off as if you can see the future.
Yes. To build housing.
Yes.
And bring more jobs. All the right things.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you.
And I actually, my partner gets upset with me. My best friend's all because like I don't like this picture. I'm a smiler. You know that about me.
You are
like,
a smiler.
It's hard for me not to smile. So like serious pictures or like not showing my wrinkles is a hard thing for me to do. But the photographer wanted like this this serious.
Because this is look at you imagining the next the new New York.
And it's serious. It's serious work. I can't be smiling about that.
Can't be smiling. Well, here's a picture where you are smiling. And I'm going to hold it up, and I want you to react to it. You can describe what you see in the picture. I have a sense of when this is from, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it.
You open with a dinner en blanc, right?
There
which
it
is an amazing pop-up dinner experience that happens every year in the city in a different neighborhood. It is distinct because, one, we were required to dress all in white, and then you don't know where the dinner's going to happen.
I
so
love
you
that.
choose a meetup place, and then there's a leader that takes you. You get on the train, you get on the bus, whatever. And so I had attended it several times myself as a participant, and so I pitched the entity to do it in Meatpacking. And we, for the first time ever, got it to be legal to have champagne on the streets of the city. We had 4,000 people come for this amazing dinner party. I was working so hard at the time. This was early, it was summer 2023, to get then Mayor Eric Adams to attend. He loves a party.
No. What? Must have really twist his arm.
And it was... He was coming.
He's in the picture.
He was coming. It's me and Mayor Adams in the picture. I'm wearing all white and a feather boa also.
Of course.
And it was just like, it was so utterly him to be there. So like literally it's going on, it's getting late. This is like 10:30 at night by the time he got there.
His night was just beginning.
Exactly. And his team called and they were like, he's coming. Not only did he come and like chat with me, talk to our table, he then, like there was a dance party happening right in the middle of Gansevoort 9th. He hung out. He was talking to people. He was like, it was the
best of.
It was the best of. Absolutely. Right? Like, believe it or not, like corruption aside, Eric Adams will have a legacy in this town on housing.
Corruption aside.
That like I have to start with that.
Yeah.
And this was a great. It's also like I'd see him again and he'd be like, that party, man, that white party. So like it's so important to have those connections, especially some of our leaders, right?
I love it. That's beautiful.
And talk about economic development, Greg. The whole point of that was for us, my board was like, why do we want this dinner party? Well, first of all, 4,000 new people to the neighborhood. I get all their emails. We're going to get them back in this district. They're going to see all these beautiful stores while they're here having dinner. They're going to want to come back. It's all adding into that big picture of the big pie of economic development.
Build a neighborhood, build a network.
All should be growing.
Last but not least, we already did this picture. You've already seen this once with your fantastic jacket, but it's just a question. There's the smile. What's next for this guy right here? This is you looking fantastic, and I don't even know what story this is at this point, but one of your many dynamic blazers. Not the best printout, but look how happy you are there. What's next for this guy?
I love this city. I love doing work that helps the city. I'm super optimistic about the city right now. There are challenges. There's no question about it. You and I have talked a lot about that.
We have.
I'm super lucky in my job. I will always want to be doing something that is civic minded, that is making a difference. And also, I love working with people. So what's next for me is we have a whole docket of streetscape projects that we're going to be working on over the next couple of years, right? Again, I'm super optimistic in many fronts about the city. I don't foresee a big job change for me anytime soon because I'm really lucky. I love my job and I get to do so much. Also, I serve on many boards and organizations that are still so meaningful to me.
Name them. Name your list.
So I'm very proud to be on the Hudson River Park Trust Board of Directors. Huge. Amazing organization. I'm on the board of New York Public Radio.
Love that.
WNYC, Gothamist, right? We love this. A stalwart cultural institution. And then a small housing conservation coordinators, an amazing tenant advocacy and housing nonprofit, legal services, immigration services, based in Hell's Kitchen, 50 years old, doing the work in the community. And I love it. So we call that my civic schedule, of which used to be the community board too. But like we build, dinner dates, vacations, all that stuff is built around the civic schedule in our household.
I love that for you. I love that for the city, the community at the center. You are making so much happen in so many ways. It's a tribute to who you are, how you think, and I think what you believe about New York City. And I know you will be front and center in what's next for New York City.
Appreciate that. And thank you for the work that you're doing. First of all, this conversation was such a delight, Greg.
It's a pleasure.
And I keep it up. Those jobs are so important. Economic development isn't just one thing, as we've talked about this entire conversation.
Absolutely. It covers every core and every center and every sector. And I'm just thrilled to be doing this with you. I'm so glad you pick up my calls now. Because it started in another way.
I'm really sorry about that.
You don't have to apologize. I get it now. And I'm glad that we have our times to conspire. And let's get some cortados.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you.